I play the character of Frank, who's sort of the leader of this research group. He's a very confident guy. He's got a lot of hubris. He's a good leader, but he might be a little blinded by his own ambition. There are also some things in his past that make him really dedicated to trying to figure out a way to bring people back from the dead. So he's very capable, but his attitude is a little dangerous. So when we start the film, we pick up with this sort of crackpot group of scientific researchers, all from different arenas. And they've been working on resuscitating small animals and bringing them back from the dead and trying to maintain as much of that brain as they can so that when they're brought back from the dead, they're not impaired. And we see this group starting with pigs and dogs, but there's one event in the film that forces them into facing whether they can do this successfully with humans. The group of researchers in this film is almost kind of like the scientific version of the Avengers. They're each good at their own one area. I play Frank, who's a very good leader, and Zoe is very good with the chemistry, and she's sort of come up with the serum that's really going to help infuse the brain to come back. And Nico is a really great computer and technical guy, and Clay is this sort of young wild card who happens to be a stoner, but is also very brilliant with his ideas. So amongst the four of us is a very good synthesis of skill sets to maybe sort of crack this idea of how can you bring someone back from the dead. So when we begin the film, our group of researchers and scientists have been resuscitating smaller animals. They've then failed on a pig, and now they come across this dog named Rocky, and they are able to successfully bring him back. But they're monitoring him to see, is he the same dog he was before he died? And he's not the same. There are mood swings, there's some marked aggression. But the question is that something they feel like they can fix? And is this a healthy process? Or is that something that is going to go off the rails? And they sort of start to track that through Rocky at the beginning of the film. I think the important thing to know about this film is that they never set out to raise a human being back from the dead on purpose in this film. There's an accident that happens that forces them into that situation. So they are somewhat ill-equipped to deal with the ramifications of bringing a human being back from the dead. They're going to study her, they're going to research Zoe and see what her behavior is like, but they don't know exactly what to do. And when she starts exhibiting some signs of erratic behavior, it throws the group for a loop. She is starting to form new neural pathways and new connections in her brain that are allowing her to do things that most human beings can't do. For instance, she's able to hear our inner thoughts at certain times, and she's able to actually control certain objects with her mind. And it raises the theory that I've always found fascinating, which is that human beings only use 10% of their brains. And what would happen if we were able to tap into the other 90%? And that's what's happening to Zoe. Yeah, there's the great story of Frankenstein, which is you create this monster, you love this monster, but this monster might destroy you. So how do you handle that? And my character Frank finds himself in a similar situation in this film, wherein a terrible accident happens in our laboratory, and I lose my fiance, and we're forced to bring her back to life with some of this technology that's not tested and not stable. And we try to do our best, but she's showing signs that she is not the same person that she was. So my character Frank has to figure out how hard is he going to try to get things right with her, and how much danger is he willing to put him and his group in order to do that. The actress Olivia Wilde plays Zoe. She's someone that I've wanted to work with for a long time, and we have a lot of friends and have kind of expressed this desire to work together. And she has such a great combination of sweetness and vulnerability, which is required for the first half of the film. And then she also has a killer in her, and she has someone who is terrifying to watch, which is required for the second half of the film. So it's fun to see her play that duality. The film is a true ensemble piece, you know, and so that in order to work really well on screen, I think it's nice to have some off-screen chemistry. And it's no secret that these movies are made kind of cheaply, so it's not that we're going into our own luxurious trailers and being off on our own. We're all in one room together, kind of talking about the scenes before we shoot them and afterwards. And a natural bonding sort of happens between us, the actors, that also needs to happen on screen for it to be credible. So it's been really fun. Our director is a young guy named David Gelb who directed this wonderful documentary called Euro Dreams of Sushi. If you haven't seen it, you should. But he's also a very skilled commercial music video director and effects person. So he's got this great combination of skill sets to do good effects, but being a documentarian, he's very sensitive to the human condition and interested in getting good performances. So that was important to me, that this film not play like an average horror thriller film. I really wanted, as much as possible, to have the performances feel natural and feel like, yes, these are scientists at the cutting edge, but they also feel like me a little bit, you know? So that's my goal for the movie, is try and fuse it with some humanity so that you can see yourself in these characters. You know, when I grew up, the kinds of thrillers that I liked watching were ones that were somewhat based in reality and that felt like this could really happen to you. And so things like The Shining, where you just watch a man descend into madness inside of a hotel, were really hit home for me. And the way it's presented visually is very mundane and feels like this could really happen to you. And that was something I responded to in this movie, is that as incredible as the premise of bringing someone back from the dead sounds, in the first half of this movie, when you track it, scientifically, it all sort of makes sense. And there are a lot of people and scientists in the world that are doing this right now. So I love that element of the film. And I think that a movie like The Exorcist is also a good link for this, because it is an analysis of a family who's having a crisis, and there is one supernatural element that makes it insane to watch, but everything else is sort of grounded in reality. To me, the horror and thriller genre are always going to be around in the same way that cliff jumping and motorcycles and skydiving will always be around. And there's an adrenaline rush and there's a feeling of being on edge and gripping your seat that is just inherently exciting. And our job here is to give the audience one that they haven't seen before and to try to deliver it in a new and interesting way.